Welcome to a special edition of the Daily Report on Friday, February 13th. I'm Lindsay Reiser, live from the CBS Broadcast Center in New York. It is day 13 in the search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. Tonight, we will devote the entire hour to her disappearance, and we answer your questions as federal authorities chase any and all leads that will bring her home.
We believe now, after we've processed that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime.
The Pima County Sheriff's Department in Arizona is calling on the public for help with finding Nancy Guthrie.
Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere. Your children will not rest until we are together again.
To anyone that may be involved, do the right thing. This is an 84-year-old grandma.
And our hearts and our prayers are with Savannah and her entire family.
Chilling new surveillance video captures the scene outside Nancy Guthrie's front door.
Authorities describe the masked figure as a male, approximately 5'9" or 5'10", with an average build.
We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help. Somehow, some way, she is feeling these prayers, and that God is lifting her even in this moment and in this darkest place.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. It is now day 13 in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie. The FBI has now doubled their reward to $100,000 for any information relating to finding Nancy or to making an arrest in this case. And for the first time, they called this individual a suspect. The FBI describing him as about 5'9" or 5'10" with an average build. CBS News reporter Jonathan Vigliotti spoke with the Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos for the first time since last Wednesday about whether the suspect should be afraid tonight.
I think the suspect should be afraid every night. We're going to find you. We're going to find you.
Are you one step closer today than you were yesterday?
Closer. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Officials are asking anyone who might have information to call the sheriff's number on your screen or 1-800-CALL-FBI. And joining me right now tonight on the desk is Anna Schecter, our senior coordinating producer for our Crime and Public Safety Unit. Anna, you have been all over this. You will be with me as we interview law enforcement experts, and we're going to be posing your questions to those experts. Basically, people have been flooding our social media pages, and it's a lot of the same questions. So we have collected them, and that is what we're going to be trying to do tonight.
And hopefully we'll debunk some of the misinformation that's out there. And hopefully also programming like this will inform our viewers. So if anybody has seen something that could help solve this case, they can speak up and reach out to the FBI.
We know law enforcement is doing the typical shoestring level leather reporting and detective work that you have to do, but it could come down to that tip, to somebody out there knowing something. So let's go ahead and begin in Tucson, Arizona, where we find CBS News reporter Andres Gutierrez. So Andres, where do things stand right now?
Well, Lindsay, we're 13 days into the search, and investigators are simply grinding away. They're collecting evidence, they're testing that evidence, and they're still working to verify tips. In that interview with Jonathan Vigliotti, the sheriff said that they have received more than 30,000 calls since Nancy was reported missing. They have at least 400 members of law enforcement right now assigned to her case. Leads are being reviewed daily and assigned to teams that are made up of a sheriff deputy as well as an FBI agent. The sheriff did confirm that investigators have received some DNA test results back, but so far that testing has not identified a suspect. We know some of the physical characteristics, but we still do not have a name. Items recovered so far include those gloves that were found about 1.5 miles away from Nancy's house. They've been sent off to the lab for analysis, but we still haven't received those results back yet. Authorities are still asking the public here near Nancy's house in the Catalina foothills within a 2-mile radius to review their surveillance video. And even if it shows a part of a person or a vehicle, they want to see it. Between New Year's Day and February 2nd, the sheriff says that there have been no confirmed signs of life, but also no evidence that she is dead. And so it's giving them and Nancy's family some hope that she is out there. Some have dubbed the 84-year-old as America's grandma, and so the clock is still ticking to find her.
There have been reports of tension between local law enforcement and federal officials in this case. What have you learned about that?
There sure have been, Lindsay, and the sheriff ended up addressing those head on with our Jonathan Vigliotti. He was asked whether his department was slowing down the investigation or outright refusing to turn over evidence to the FBI. And here's what the sheriff had to say.
Well, first of all, I think there's nothing further than the truth than our two agencies not working well together. That is not even close. I don't know where this report comes from. I understand that, at the ground level, everybody has pride in their agency. My deputies are very proud of their agencies. I'm proud to be a deputy. FBI, a great agency, have a lot of pride. Sometimes there might be a difference of how we work this lead or that lead. But if you go back to our last press conference, 2 days into this, maybe 3 days, we are plugged in at the hip with the FBI.
And so the sheriff says this is not about a turf war. This is about using the right lab for the right job and to keep the process consistent. The physical evidence being handled by a lab that is out of state. The digital evidence, including those ransom notes that local outlets and TMZ got, those were being handled by the FBI. But again, the sheriff insisting that both agencies are working side by side.
Okay, Andres Gutierrez, thank you so much. We're on this investigation. Let's bring in Anna Schecter. So we mentioned that CBS News' Jonathan Vigliotti spoke to Sheriff Nanos. Let's play a little bit more of what he had to say.
We did get some DNA back, and we are looking at all those things.
Has it led to a name?
No. You mean a suspect?
Yeah.
Boy, I wish it did. Not yet.
What did you make of what we're hearing from the sheriff tonight?
Well, they had sent evidence to this lab in Florida, and they had actually found DNA, and they were getting some of these results back, but it did not point to a specific individual. And this is typical in cases like this. It doesn't work where you just send in a glove and then you get DNA and boom, there's a photo and an ID of a person. It doesn't work like that. And unfortunately, this is a typical case in this sense.
So in order to get a hit, what would the suspect had to have done in the past? Is it have a criminal record where the DNA is on file?
Potentially, or maybe even done 23andMe, and then there has to be coordination between the FBI and the company. So this is a process, and it takes time. And this also speaks a little bit to why this is taking so much time. But unfortunately, the testing that has been done at that lab so far has not yielded a really strong lead for investigators.
Is this sort of an indication that this information will be more helpful on the back end when the suspect is finally caught and putting those pieces together for a criminal prosecution?
Exactly right, Lindsay. Once they find the suspect, then they can match that individual's DNA. They'll have this person in custody. They'll take a follicle sample or a swab, a cheek swab, and then they can match that to the DNA found at the scene of the crime.
A lot of people keep saying, why is this taking so long? I think it's important to remind people of some recent manhunts that have been, that we have covered. Luigi Mangione, charged with the murder of United Healthcare CEO. Brian Koberger, who killed the 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. Tyler Robinson, he has been charged with Charlie Kirk's murder. Maybe not this long. I think Koberger was 6 weeks.
That's right. But during those 6 weeks, you had a lot of frustration. How is it possible that this is taking so long? And then something cracked this case wide open. And it's a lot of police work. So many resources have been thrown at this. Luigi Mangione, let's look at this example. It was luck. The fact that those people in that McDonald's saw him and said, wait a minute, something isn't right here, and they called 911. That is what cracked this case. Think if those people had not said something, we could have been looking at a totally different timeline for that case. So just for people to remember, it seems like the suspect has had a lot of luck on their side, and law enforcement not a lot of luck, but that could change.
Do you recall with Koberger, was it the DNA that led them to him, or was it the DNA that solidified his prosecution?
Solidified, and remember, it was the cell phone pings that were important, and law enforcement is absolutely using that type of technology in this case right now.
Okay, Anna Schecter, thank you. Again, you're going to be with me all hour, but Nancy Guthrie was last seen the night of Saturday, January 31st. 13 days ago. Let's bring you caught up to speed on the timeline once again. She had dinner at her daughter Annie's house that night. Her son-in-law drove her home, and the next day she was reported missing. On Monday, February 2nd, the Pima County Sheriff held his first press conference and declared the house to be a crime scene. Later that night, the sheriff and local TV stations received an apparent ransom note that authorities are taking seriously. That note included a monetary demand and a 5 p.m. deadline for that Thursday. On Wednesday, the Guthrie children posted their first video on Instagram pleading for their mother's safe return. As the search became more desperate, the Guthrie family posted another video on Saturday the 7th telling their mother's possible kidnapper they are willing to pay money for the return of their mom. On Tuesday, investigators announced a major development, those new images from surveillance video the morning Nancy Guthrie disappeared. And search efforts accelerated from there. Overnight Tuesday, authorities detained but later released a potential person of interest. On Wednesday, they found a pair of black gloves near the home. And on Thursday, the FBI doubled that reward and described the suspect as a male with an average build and a height of about 5'9" to 5'10". So, Anna, let's go ahead and bring you a few more questions. A number of viewers had questions about the surveillance footage. One asked, why did it take them so long to get this out?
This is a really great question, and a lot of people have been asking me the same thing. Why did it take a week for this doorbell camera to go out? Well, it was deleted, actually. It was Nancy Guthrie had a Nest camera. Nest is owned by Google, and she did not pay for a subscription. And so every few hours, whatever the camera captured, and especially it records when it detects movement, was taped over. And so essentially, it's like on a computer, you delete a file, but it is still backed up. There's still data. It's just the file has been deleted. And so that data went up into a cloud. And thankfully, you had Google engineers work on that to essentially retrieve that from the cloud, reconstruct it, and then share that with the FBI. And our understanding is that the Google engineers worked on that and then provided this restored video to the FBI. And then they had to go through, and they knew they had some timestamps to look for that helped them narrow the search. But still, that takes a lot of hours of searching through the terabytes of video to find exactly what they wanted.
So that leads to the next question from a viewer. Is there footage of her being taken away?
That is a great question. Our reporting indicates that we don't know if there is, and there might not be footage of her being taken out of the house.
Real quick, what was the tie to the person of interest? This guy named Carlos of Rio Rico, who's no longer considered a person of interest.
So Carlos, who we spoke to, had been in the vicinity, and we were talking earlier about cell phone tower pings. So law enforcement knew that he had been in the Tucson area and even not too far away, and they were using that to try to track. There are a number of ways. They can look at vehicles, but remember, it was so dark that a license plate reader camera, even half a mile away, they were trying to lean on that, but it was really dark. And those it doesn't always pick up that, oh, that's the car. It's really tough. So we know he was in Tucson, but he was cleared.
Okay. Officials are asking anyone who might have information to call the sheriff's number that we are going to put up on your screen, 1-800-CALL-FBI. We're going to answer more of your questions about the case of Nancy Guthrie.